It started as a joke, a light-hearted trend on TikTok. A woman turns to her boyfriend, her brother, or her dad and asks, "How often do you think about the Roman Empire?" Without hesitation, he answers, "Every day." The internet laughed. Millions of comments poured in. Videos multiplied, stitched, remixed, and reposted. From college students to CEOs, from mechanics to professors, men across the world confessed that the Roman Empire crosses their mind. A lot. But behind the laughter, something curious emerged. Why do so many men think about an empire that vanished over 15 centuries ago? Why does the image of Caesar, legions, marble columns, and crimson banners echo in the modern male mind? This viral moment revealed something far deeper than a meme. It wasn't just nostalgia or random fascination. It was a mirror, reflecting an ancient story we still tell ourselves about power, order, struggle, and what it means to be a man. For centuries, the Roman Empire has been the default language of greatness. When we describe the height of civilization, we say, "It was Rome." When we imagine collapse, we say, "Rome fell." It is as if Rome is the metric by which we measure all human achievement and all human failure. Maybe that's why men think about it, because in Rome they see both glory and ruin, discipline and decadence, purpose and loss. Rome represents the ultimate story of building something vast, only to watch it crumble. And in the quiet hours of modern life, commuting to work, scrolling through feeds, chasing goals that feel endless, perhaps men wonder, are we still Rome? This is where our journey begins. Over the next chapters, we'll explore not just a viral question, but a profound connection between ancient history and modern identity. We'll uncover the psychological patterns, the cultural myths, and the hidden fascinations that tie today's men to the empire of yesterday. Because maybe, just maybe, the Roman Empire never truly ended. Maybe it simply moved into the human imagination. Every man thinks about Rome, but he isn't thinking about marble or swords. He's thinking about something eternal, something he can't quite name. Rome is dead. At least that's what the history books tell us. The empire collapsed in the 5th century, its marble halls overtaken by grass and dust. But look closer, and you'll see that Rome never really died. It just changed shape, dissolving into the bloodstream of Western civilization. Everywhere you look, fragments of the empire remain. In Washington, D.C., the marble domes and columns echo the architecture of the Senate and the Forum. In modern law, you can still trace the logic of Roman jurisprudence, contracts, citizenship, the idea that the state exists under written code. Even the language you're hearing now is built upon Latin foundations. Rome didn't fall. It was absorbed and into our buildings, our governments, our religions, our words, and even our sense of time. We still speak of civilization as Rome defined it: roads, order, discipline, hierarchy. And when we imagine chaos, we speak of barbarism, a Roman term for everything outside the empire's control. So when modern men think about the Roman Empire, perhaps they're not thinking about ruins. They're thinking about home, a civilization that feels both ancient and strangely familiar, because we are still living inside its shadow. The Romans built not only an empire of stone, but an empire of ideas. Ideas about law, virtue, loyalty, and strength. About what it means to belong and what it means to rule. And those ideas became the scaffolding for the Western world. Every generation since has carried Rome's ghosts. Napoleon dreamed of being Caesar. The British called themselves the New Rome. Even America, founded by men who read Latin and idolized the Senate, built its capital in the image of the eternal city. The eagle, the republic, the Senate, the capital. All Roman words for modern power. Maybe that's why Rome endures, because it wasn't just a place, it was a pattern, the ultimate symbol of order in a chaotic world. And men by nature are drawn to systems that promise mastery, hierarchy, and purpose. Rome offers that, a mirror of strength, ambition, and control that feels both aspirational and haunting. When a man scrolls through history and sees Rome, he sees the blueprint of civilization itself, the foundation of everything he's been told to build, protect, and conquer. In his imagination, Rome is not gone, it's simply waiting. Rome's stones may have crumbled, but its empire lives on, in laws, in language, and in the restless heart of modern man. There is a quiet truth buried beneath the fascination with Rome, a truth about the human mind and especially the male psyche. Men have always been drawn to systems of power that promise purpose, hierarchy, and meaning. And the Roman Empire, with its order, its legions, its discipline, embodies all three. Psychologists call it the archetype of structure. When the world feels chaotic, the mind seeks patterns, frameworks to make sense of uncertainty. Rome offers that framework, a vast, perfectly engineered machine where every man knew his duty, every stone had its place, and chaos was pushed to the borders of the map. For the modern man, life often feels the opposite, undefined, fluid, shifting faster than he can adapt. Society no longer offers clear roles, clear goals, or clear rites of passage. So subconsciously the mind reaches back to the last time in memory where order seemed absolute. And there it finds Rome. It isn't nostalgia for togas or temples. It's nostalgia for clarity. A world where honor had a code, virtue had a name, and the path to greatness was carved in stone. This is the psychology of empire, the yearning for a structured world that validates discipline and ambition. In Rome, effort equaled status. The soldier who endured became a citizen. The citizen who served earned legacy. It was a civilization built on the belief that purpose came from service and that strength justified its own existence. Contrast that with today. We live in a landscape of infinite choice but shallow meaning. Power is abstract. Money, algorithms, influence, intangible forces instead of legions and banners. In such a world, the empire becomes a metaphor, a symbol of control over chaos. Perhaps this is why the idea of empire, especially Rome, resonates so deeply with men, because psychologically, it satisfies an ancient drive, not just to dominate but to belong within a hierarchy of purpose. It offers the illusion of certainty, that through discipline and loyalty, one can build something eternal. And yet that illusion cuts both ways. The same desire for order can lead to obsession, to a need for conquest, validation, or control. Rome's shadow lingers because it reflects both our highest discipline and our deepest insecurity. When men think about the Roman Empire, they are not dreaming of empire alone. They are longing for meaning, for a place in the grand machinery of civilization. Rome, then, is not just history. It's psychology, a symbol of the mind's endless battle between chaos and control. And that battle still wages within every man. To understand the obsession with Rome, we must understand what Rome represented, not just as an empire, but as an ideal of manhood. In the ancient world, masculinity wasn't an abstract idea. It was a daily performance of discipline, endurance, and service. For the Roman, virtues, from which we get the word virtue, literally meant manly excellence. To be a man was to act with courage, restraint, and loyalty to something greater than oneself. The Roman soldier embodied this perfectly. His life was defined by structure, dawn drills, strict hierarchy, unwavering obedience. Pain was not an obstacle but a teacher. He was taught that to suffer with dignity was the path to immortality, that the empire itself was a living proof of sacrifice turned into glory. It was a world where hardship built identity, and strength built belonging. Now, contrast that with today. Modern masculinity drifts in ambiguity. There are fewer rites of passage, fewer communal expectations, fewer moments that define what it means to become a man. Comfort has replaced endurance. Convenience has replaced struggle. And so men look back, not for nostalgia, but for anchors. The Roman world offered clarity. Every man had a role: citizen, soldier, senator, slave. Honor wasn't a feeling, it was a framework. Your value came from your contribution, your discipline, your capacity to endure. There was meaning in struggle, dignity in sacrifice, and purpose in belonging to a cause larger than yourself. In today's culture, men are told to find meaning individually, to be yourself, to follow your passion. But the freedom that promises liberation can also breed confusion. What if the self isn't enough? What if meaning only truly exists when tied to duty, legacy, or creation? Things that the Roman world understood instinctively. That's why, when modern men think about Rome, they don't imagine conquest for conquest's sake. They imagine clarity, a world where men were needed, respected, and measured by tangible acts of strength and service. It is the longing for the kind of purpose the modern world has quietly eroded. Of course, that vision of masculinity had its shadows: domination, cruelty, and rigid hierarchy. But even in its flaws, Rome offered a story that modern men recognize: the tension between power and principle. To the Roman, masculinity was duty. To the modern man, it is a question. And somewhere between those two, between the legion and the laptop, lies the enduring appeal of Rome. Rome is not just ancient history, it's a mirror, one that modern civilization still stares into every single day. We drive on roads first mapped by Roman engineers. We debate in parliaments modeled after the Senate. We judge by laws inspired by the 12 tables, and we still dream in the language they left behind. But more than physical traces, Rome survives in our systems, the invisible frameworks that shape the modern world. Every office tower, courtroom, and university echoes with its philosophy: order, hierarchy, discipline, ambition. Even the modern concept of citizenship, rights and responsibilities, is a Roman invention. The world we inhabit is built on their blueprint. For the modern man, that blueprint has become a mythic reference point. To think about Rome is to think about achievement, endurance, and legacy. It's the ultimate civilization, a metaphor for what it means to build something that lasts. In a world obsessed with the fleeting, short videos, temporary fame, fragile identity, Rome represents permanence. Stone against time, purpose against noise. When men today speak of building their empire, it's not just a metaphor for wealth or influence. It's a reflection of Rome's enduring promise: that human effort can conquer chaos, that with discipline, structure, and courage, one can carve order out of the void. A startup founder, an athlete, a soldier, a craftsman, all in their own way, are heirs to the Roman ideal. But Rome's meaning today is not just about triumph, it's also a warning that every empire, no matter how strong, carries the seed of its own decline. Rome teaches that progress demands sacrifice, and that pride, when left unchecked, becomes decay. This is why the story still grips us, because it holds both the dream and the downfall of civilization. Modern men don't just think about Rome's rise, they think about its fall. And maybe that's the deeper fascination, a subconscious recognition that we too stand at the edge of something immense, powerful, and fragile. We sense the echoes of the Forum in our news feeds, the Senate's debates in our politics, the Coliseum's cheers in our digital spectacles. Rome, then, isn't a place in history. It's an idea, a reminder of what humanity can build when united by purpose, and what it risks losing when that purpose fades. To think about Rome today is to wonder not if it fell, but whether we are next. Imagine standing in the heart of ancient Rome. The sun blazes over the Coliseum. 50,000 spectators roar as gladiators clash in the sand. Blood, sweat, and spectacle. The empire's grand theater of control and chaos. The emperor presides above it all, his thumb deciding life or death. Now open your phone. Scroll through your feed. Crowds cheer and boo in comment sections. Influencers rise and fall in the public eye. Reputation, not survival, is the new blood sport. Welcome to the digital Coliseum. The internet has become our modern arena. Every tweet, every video, every post is a contest for attention, the new currency of power. We don't fight lions, but algorithms. We don't wield swords, but opinions. And instead of emperors, we serve unseen systems that reward engagement and outrage. In Rome, the Coliseum was more than entertainment. It was politics, a tool to distract the masses, to reaffirm power, to remind citizens who controlled the narrative. Today, the digital arena serves the same purpose. We scroll, react, and perform, all while the true architects of empire remain invisible behind code and profit. Yet for the modern man, the parallels go deeper. Like the gladiator, he is both performer and prisoner, striving for glory in a system that feeds on his effort. He trains, builds, posts, competes, and bleeds time into the sand of the feed, hoping to win the crowd's approval. And when he fails, the crowd moves on, hungry for the next spectacle. But here is the irony. Rome's games were built to give the illusion of freedom within control. So too with the internet. We are free to express, but bound to be seen. Free to create, but forced to perform. It's a paradox that would make any Roman philosopher nod in recognition. This is the empire reborn, not in marble, but in pixels. The architecture of Rome's power has become the architecture of data. Where once the crowd filled the stands, now billions fill the feed. Where once the emperor's gaze decided fates, now algorithms do the same. In ancient Rome, the crowd shouted, "Ave Caesar." Today we shout, like, share, subscribe. Different words, same instinct. The need to be seen, the fear to be forgotten. And beneath it all, the timeless question, who really rules the arena now? Historians study ruins, dates, and wars. They map the rise and fall of empires with cold precision, timelines, battles, treaties. But the true legacy of Rome doesn't live in stone. It lives in memory, in psychology, in the architecture of the modern mind. What historians often miss is that Rome never truly ended. It dissolved into the bloodstream of civilization. Its ideas, mine about power, hierarchy, masculinity, and destiny, mutated, spread, and became invisible frameworks through which the West still sees the world. When a man today dreams of conquest, success, or immortality, he isn't quoting Caesar, but he is echoing Rome. Rome taught that greatness is forged through struggle, that men are measured not by comfort, but by endurance, that the world itself bends to will, not chance. These weren't just political ideals, they were psychological imprints, passed from century to century, reshaping kings, nations, and even algorithms. And yet, modern history often writes Rome as a cautionary tale, a story of excess, corruption, and decline. But what it fails to grasp is that Rome's collapse was not disappearance. It was transformation. Its empire fractured, but its myth evolved. From emperors to CEOs, from legions to corporations, from the Senate to boardrooms and governments still echoing Roman law and rhetoric. Even language carries Rome's ghost. Empire, civilization, citizen, senator. These aren't relics. They're living code, still shaping how we define ourselves and others. The historian counts the years since Rome's fall, but the psychologist, the sociologist, the storyteller, they know better. Rome never fell. It sank inward. It became the unconscious empire of the modern West. Every time a man feels the pull toward order, dominance, or immortality, that's Rome whispering. Every time he gazes at a skyscraper, a stadium, a political rally, and feels awe, that's Rome, resurrected. So when we ask why men still think about the Roman Empire, perhaps the answer is unsettlingly simple. Because we live inside it. Because we are it. History remembers what it can measure, but myth remembers what it can't escape. And Rome is both. Rome promised control over land, over people, over destiny itself. It built systems to contain chaos, laws, armies, gods, and hierarchies. But beneath the marble, chaos always waited. Every triumph in the Forum echoed with the fear of collapse. Every emperor's crown came with the whisper of betrayal. That's the paradox men have inherited. We build empires, personal, digital, or corporate, believing mastery is possible. We plan, we calculate, we discipline ourselves into the illusion of order. But Rome teaches a darker truth. Control is a story we tell ourselves to survive the uncontrollable. The Roman general believed his legions marched because of his will. But storms sank his fleets. Plagues decimated his cities. His empire was built on sand, dressed up as stone. And yet he believed, because belief itself was power. Modern men echo that same faith. We measure success in followers, dollars, muscle, or influence. We craft identities like Roman statues, perfect, hard, untouchable. But behind every image lies the same trembling question. What happens when the world stops listening? The myth of control is seductive. It tells us that if we grind hard enough, we can dominate fate. It's why self-help gurus sound like Stoic philosophers, why entrepreneurs quote Marcus Aurelius, why discipline equals freedom could have been inscribed on a Roman wall. But Rome's final centuries tell another side of the myth, the burnout of empire. As expansion drained its soul, the need for control became obsession. Laws multiplied, rituals stiffened, surveillance grew, until Rome no longer ruled the world, it ruled itself to death. The modern man repeats this pattern. He seeks mastery through productivity, perfection, control of his time, his body, his image. But in chasing order, he often loses peace. He becomes his own emperor and his own prisoner. Rome fell when it forgot the difference between control and balance. Perhaps that's the lesson it left us, hidden beneath centuries of ruins. That strength is not control, that mastery is not domination, that the empire within is not meant to be conquered but understood. Because the man who seeks to rule everything will always be ruled by what he fears to lose. Walk into any modern gym, and you'll find the echoes of Rome. Iron clangs, sweat drips, bodies strain. Not for survival, but for meaning. Men chase discipline, power, endurance. Not unlike Roman soldiers training for war, except now the battlefield is invisible, fought in ambition, identity, and digital image. The Roman ideal of virtus, strength, courage, moral excellence, still shapes the blueprint of masculinity. It whispers through motivational speeches, military aesthetics, and the worship of self-control. To be a man, Rome taught, is to endure pain with pride, to dominate chaos, to build order from ruin. But today, that ideal has fractured. Modern masculinity lives in conflict, between stoic restraint and emotional honesty, between dominance and vulnerability. Men scroll through endless feeds that both idolize and shame them. Be powerful. Be sensitive. Be everything. And in that noise, the Roman echo grows louder, a longing for clarity, for hierarchy, for something absolute. The Roman man lived by codes, discipline, loyalty, conquest. The modern man lives by algorithms. But both systems share a cruel symmetry: reward the strong, forget the weak. In both, the fear of insignificance drives behavior. Every post, every achievement, every flex becomes a way to say, I still matter. This is why the Roman Empire lives rent-free in the male mind. It's not nostalgia, it's resonance. A mirror reflecting the unspoken pressures of being a man today, to lead, to protect, to endure, to never show collapse. Rome gives that struggle a mythology, a lineage, proof that the burden of control and strength isn't new, just renamed. Yet buried inside that myth is a wound, because even the most powerful Roman feared the one truth he couldn't conquer: impermanence. Every empire, every body, every legacy fades. And the harder men fight that truth, the heavier the armor becomes. Modern masculinity is still Rome, proud, disciplined, uncertain. And maybe the fascination isn't with its triumphs, but its fragility. Because deep down, men don't think of Rome because it was powerful. They think of it because it fell. At last we arrive where all empires end, not in ruins but in reflection. Because the Roman Empire isn't just history, it's a mirror. And when modern men think of Rome, they're not remembering marble columns or Caesars. They're remembering themselves. Every generation builds its own Rome, a version of power, structure, purpose. For some, it's a career. For others, a body sculpted in discipline. For many, it's the quiet empire of survival, holding it all together in a world that's always shifting. We all construct walls to protect what we love. We all crave order in the chaos. And like Rome, we mistake endurance for eternity. But the lesson of Rome isn't how to conquer, it's how to collapse and begin again. Because no matter how mighty, every empire, external or internal, will fall when it forgets to renew itself. The marble cracks, the banners fade, the crowds move on. Yet from that silence, something new always rises. Music, slow choral swell. Ancient meets modern low drums beneath strings. Maybe the real reason men think about the Roman Empire every day is because they feel it dying inside themselves. The constant pressure to be unbreakable, in a world that never stops demanding more. The need to conquer time, money, identity, emotion, all while pretending not to feel the strain. But collapse is not failure. It's the space where transformation begins. Rome teaches us that strength isn't domination. It's endurance through change. That even ruins can become sacred. That legacy isn't power, it's perspective. So when a man thinks of Rome, maybe he's not longing for empire at all. Maybe he's longing for peace, for the courage to stop building and start being. The empire never left us. It lives in our rituals, our ambitions, our fears. But the truest empire, the one worth ruling, is the empire within.